Cool. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off, guys. So we are going to be playing around with a couple of new things format-wise. First of all, it's great to see so many people showing up. We have some high attendance. Um, I'm going to be kind of moderating the mute button a little bit as needed. So if somebody has something to, something to share, something to point in, just take a look down to see if you're muted before you start chatting. Um, Otherwise, we'll work with that. So this is our weekly appliance repair roundtable meeting. We hold these every week, Thursday evenings, and we are going to look at structuring this into kind of like three phases tonight. So the first phase will just sort of be like open discussion. This is the time where if you guys have anything that you want to like pick each other's brains on, questions, anything that's working well for you that you want to share. And then we'll segue into that second phase where if you have a question about like having trouble with an appliance diagnosing, save that for the second phase. We're going to do like this mock diagnoses role play that we did a couple weeks ago, and it seemed to be pretty helpful and kind of fun. And then Andrew had a tech sheet that he sent over to me, and he had an idea in mind that he wants to run through with tech sheet. Andrew, did you have anything more you wanted to add to that? I'm not sure exactly what you had in mind.
No, I really didn't have anything extra to add to it. It's just the most common dishwasher in the world, and I figure it'd be an easy way to start in on this new system.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and get going with sort of open discussion. I'll sit back and you guys feel free to just unmute yourself, jump in. If you guys have a question, anything you, like I said, anything you want to just like throw around with the other guys, something that's working well for you, here's the time to shine. All right, so I'm going to help stimulate the conversation a little bit. I'm curious, a show of, I guess I can't see everybody's hands, but I'm curious, I've been running into, so if you guys don't know like who I am and what I do, I help appliance repair businesses with growing their business through marketing, sales, sort of business, analytics and strategy. And I've found that one of the biggest barriers for businesses, like they want to grow and they want to get into advertising, but one of the things that is a barrier for them is that they don't know exactly how to make sure that it's going to be a smart investment. They don't know how to kind of work through the numbers to get an understanding of like, hey, if I'm going to spend this much, maybe I can bring this much money in or this many leads in. So what barriers do any of you guys have for marketing, lead generation? What questions, what are any of the murky areas in your head that maybe we can share or answer for you?
Just to chime in on this, I spend a lot in Google Ads a month and everything else, but I can tell you that, I mean, if the money's coming in, I mean, that's what it costs to do business. But I'm a new company, so I didn't have my name out there or anything else. I had to actually generate all those leads.
So Bobby, let me dive a little deeper on that and ask you, like when you're thinking about the, I guess the leads that are coming in or how filled your schedule is, what would you say the one thing is that you look to or think about in your head to get an indication of whether things are in the right direction or not? I'm hinting at like a key performance indicator.
Hell, if you want to bring mine up, you could. But as far as the margins go, I mean, it doesn't really matter what you're bringing in as long as you're, it doesn't matter what's really going out as long as you're making more bringing it in, right?
So how do you gauge that? Do you look at like how much money you're bringing in per day? Do you look at a certain level of profitability per ticket? How do you measure that?
I look at what I want my call volume to be, and I reverse the problem. Okay, I want this many calls, per day, this many calls per week, this many total per month. What do I got to do to get to that goal? Because that's the bottom dollar. I know if I'm running those calls, that everything else will be, copacetic and fall into place. So in order for me to get this type of call volume, this is what I got to do. This is what I got to spend. As long as I get that call volume, really what I'm spending will be landslided by the overcome of the end of the day.
So what I hear a lot from people is like, hey, I'm scheduling out one day. Oh my God, I need to do something. Like we see a lot of posts in the Facebook group, like, hey, other people are like, oh my gosh, I'm scheduling out 2 weeks. Would you guys say is that everybody's metric? Do you look at how far out you're scheduled in your work and that gives you a good feeling in your gut or not? How do you every one of you determine that?
Me personally, I feel a lot better when I'm scheduled out like a week out. I mean, I just feel better knowing that I have the calls already there,
There's a huge difference, a big difference between having a full schedule for a day compared to having a full schedule for 2 weeks. 2 weeks is unnerving. 1 day is unnerving. There's a fine line, or there's a balance somewhere in the middle there. And I'd say I like it to be 2 or 3 days generally. That way I'm not putting parts jobs off for too long or having to squeeze them in and overbook myself. I don't know if there's a right answer here, but I think 1 day is not enough, not knowing if you're going to have enough work tomorrow, and then 2 weeks out is too much.
I agree with Andrew on that one. I get a little bit anxious if I'm too slow, but at the same time, if I'm booking a week or two out, I get to the point where I don't feel like I'm giving as quality of a service to my customer, and I don't want my quality of service to go down as far as turnaround time.
Well,
you lose a high volume of customers when you're booking 2 weeks out too, because there's somebody else out there that can get there quicker, and those calls may not ever come back. Those are potential repeat customers, and that's where the money's at, in my opinion, is that repeat customer that you might lose forever because you were booked too far out.
True.
That brings up a good point. I don't max my calls out per day. I always try to have like a little bit of wiggle room in case I can get like a day one complete, or if I have an emergency call for whatever reason. So how my call volume.
Bobby, I'm just going to jump in here because you're, Bobby, just so you know,
we usually try to go like ahead of schedule, maybe like the remaining 2 or 3 calls, whatever I can bridge.
Didn't get any of that.
All right, I'm not. I think that we're all probably experiencing Bobby's low reception, but this is good. What's coming up? So I like where this is going, and this is a consistent theme that I'm hearing from appliance repair business owners. It's like that first sort of metric of gauging success, how well things are going, how healthy is your business at this time, is how far are you scheduling out. Now, here's going to be a good follow-up question. At what point do you say, all right, something needs to change? Whether that's you work extra hours to bring that capacity in your schedule down, or whether you start hiring out. So what's that phase 2 look like for some of you guys?
Well, I can speak on what it's looked like for me since I've hired a guy. My main concern now is making sure that he has work every day. So on days when, he's got 6 calls to run and maybe I only have 5 calls to run, I can work on other things to help generate more work, network more, and get other, get the calls coming in for the future while I'm making sure he's out there getting the calls knocked out and doing his thing. And, you know, giving him the support that he might need as a new tech to, you know, make sure I'm there for him, which my partner Austin, he does a lot of that as well. So it's kind of nice to have the three of us working on it, and you know, being able to grow like we just slowed down a little bit the last few weeks. I think I mentioned that a few weeks ago. We just slowed down, so it's kind of been nice to run 5 or 6 calls a day and have time to work on other things and focus on, you know, growing the business and not just completing service calls.
So from my point of view, phase 2 is always to start doing a better job at pre-screening calls. Kind of like Bobby talks about very, very frequently, it's not taking the calls that you know are going to be junk. You know you're going to go out there and condemn such and such appliance, or you're going to go out there and the customer's, you know, going to boo-hoo you about the price of that particular repair. So you start to weed those calls out. Those are the ones that you drop. Instead of losing the customer that you know is good money, who might call someone else to get there quicker, just go ahead and forget about the junk calls. Break.
Yeah, no, that's a very, it's a common concept across many different business sort of industries. It's like step 1 is getting that level of volume, you know, getting yourself busy enough to the point where you have the space to breathe and start working on the business, optimizing, you know, making the little tweaks to whatever it is, get the right kind of calls in, or find some efficiencies in your sort of back end process, that kind of stuff. But no, this is good. Some more people have jumped in since we started, and I was really just trying to help stimulate some conversation and fill some space. What is, let's go ahead and get a volunteer. I'd love to hear what's like one of the biggest challenges for one of you guys right now, and let's see if the group can help you out. Feel free to just unmute yourself and jump in.
As far as what, Alec?
I do have an appliance problem that I'm dealing with right now. If anybody wants to help me brainstorm.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, I've got a defrost issue on a Frigidaire French door bottom mount. Customer has about a 2-week defrost issue. And I have verified that the board will go into defrost in diagnostics. And I have verified that the heater will operate in the ice cabinet as well as the freezer evap. However, the defrost terminator bimetal has, you know how the caps come apart and you can get moisture inside the defrost bimetals? Generally, they fail in the open state. This one is not failed when I'm testing it, but you can tell that there's moisture inside that terminator. Does anybody have any input if there's a possibility that that has done damage to the board? I have been able to get that heater to come on every time I've tried, but I have a feeling that over time it's opening with higher concentrations of moisture inside that bimetal.
Did you change that bimetal yet?
I just put one in today.
How do you know it has moisture? Can you shake it?
You can see the rust pattern around the cap where it, I should just go grab it. It's right here in my van. Break for a minute. I'll be right back.
I hope you use gel caps when you put it back on.
When I put it back on, can you guys hear me? All right, hopefully I can give you a good image here. So where's the camera? Can you see this capital? How it's separated slightly? It's risen.
Yeah, it's popped. It's replaced.
It's definitely popped slightly.
Yeah. Always change it, man. It's too cheap of a part to risk a recall.
They're so cheap.
Well, it's now changed. I did that today. Previous visit, there was a door gasket, very clear door gasket issue. And I told the customer, I'm like, look, we're going to start with the simple stuff. This frost accumulation could be as simple as letting moist air in here. I don't want to go racking up a bill because there's different issues. We had an ice maker issue, we had a door gasket issue, and we had heavy frost accumulation on the evap coil.
Well, okay, I mean, if it's a door gasket issue, the frost is going to be more in the front instead of in the back.
There was an accumulation throughout the entire freezer. So it wasn't obvious that it was a defrost issue as much as it was, let's take care of one problem at a time.
Right, but that overfrosting is still going to prolong that bimetal runtime and cause it to run excessive. I'd change it regardless.
Yeah, no matter
I
what.
did not change it on the previous visit. I changed it today.
Ah.
So today was my second visit, roughly 3 weeks after initial call.
I mean, just looking at the bimetal, you should, after this, if you did change it, I mean, you're going to be perfectly fine, I think.
I agree.
It's water that froze
So,
up. You can tell.
Moving one step past that, the
Yes.
temperatures in the fresh food cabinet were weird. So he defrosted it Saturday. So I got there on a clear evap coil. His fresh food temperatures are bad now too. They were running at about 42 degrees with a 33-degree set point. So that was another weird thing.
Is that the one that has that air tower in the back with the temperature sensor at the base of the tower?
Yeah.
Did you change that sensor?
I have not done anything except a bimetal as of this point. I fixed the gasket while I was there last time, told him, please keep me updated because we don't know if there's going to be continued issues, but I'm not going to start throwing parts at this thing. And I went back today to a clear evap coil, a functioning ice maker, and I found this bimetal was the only thing that I thought was out of the ordinary. But it freaking worked.
I've seen on that air tower on the base of that damper where that little foam seal is. That foam seal water saturates and then freezes when that damper opens and causes all kinds of weird shit. It can cause it to freeze it, keep it shut. It can open it up and let it come through, and it's just a $2 seal. In some cases, like with what you're going through, shotgun that. I mean, a foam seal is $2. That bimetal, 13. I mean, you're going to throw $20 and parts in it versus coming back on a recall.
This is not the customer that I can do that with, though. For one, I'm not a big fan of that technique, but for two, this is not the guy to do it with if I'm going to do that. He's too technically savvy. He understands everything that's going on. He's trusting me to make the next decision. I don't know. I have seen those foam gaskets collapse many a times. I stock the gasket. I sell at least 6 a year. But
thermal putty helps too.
Around what?
On those Frigidaires.
Yeah, in replacement of the gasket.
Yeah. Well, not the gasket, but the foam seal around the tower. Same thing on the ice maker.
Yeah. Like yeah, sure. I get it. So you guys don't think I have a control board issue is what I'm hearing. Likely it's just that bimetal and I'm probably not going to hear from him again.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
You said you put it in diagnostic mode. What did you check?
For the defrost. And the defrost heater operated with this bimetal that's popped.
Oh.
That's why I'm so stumped on it.
Yeah, but just
I'm
because
wondering if moisture over time. I'm wondering if moisture over time accumulates enough to cause that bimetal, or once that bimetal gets enough moisture to cause a freeze, will prevent the switch from activating inside that bimetal. It might take a week or two to actually do what I think it's doing, but that's my theory as of right now.
Forcing it into a run mode and then having it run on its own, though, is two different things.
Right, it is, absolutely. And I believe that what it did previously was caused it to go into an extended defrost time, which then put it into a limp mode, and that's why I'm getting bad fresh food temperatures.
Is that the one that has that? Is that the one that has that little itty bitty white freezer temp sensor? Yeah, over in the right corner.
No.
Okay.
Well, it's not on the evap coil. The one on the evap coil, I found that sensor is junk, and I have problems with that sensor. There's
Right.
there's not a coil temperature sensor. I don't know. All right. Well, I'll keep you guys updated on that. If I get a call back in 2 weeks, I'm probably going to pop aboard, and I don't
All
think
right,
I
so
need it.
You did.
I have 2 Whirlpool dishwashers right now, 2 of them doing the exact same thing, no drain. One had a plastic bag in the drain pump, so I replaced the drain pump, tested it, it worked. I leave, customer calls me the next day, still not draining. I come back out, I put it in drain, I can hear the pump running, no drain. Pull the drain, check the hose, everything checks fine. Put it back together, test it, it works good. I'm trying to determine if there is a check valve in that drain hose that might be getting clogged, stuck by debris or bullshit, but I have 2 of them. So the second one I went out on just to take, care of it, he had the exact same problem and his pump was perfectly fine. So on his, I changed that drain hose, thinking, okay, there's got to be a check valve in there that's sticking like the previous one. Did it, tested it, it worked fine. He called back saying same thing, not draining. There's something I'm missing on these 2 Whirlpools that are identical and both have a drain issue. Pumps are confirmed and the hoses are clear.
They're not connected. They're not connected to a garbage disposal.
No, the punch outs are clear.
But did you tell the
so
second
I
guy
would
that?
I would just unhook that hose and blow, man, and see what happens.
Well, here's the thing, Bobby. Like, if you're testing it out, you're doing it manually, right? Like, setting it all in and everything, or are you gonna let it go in by itself? Just put it in a course, right? Is that what you're doing, or?
I'm filling it normal and then hitting cancel and allowing the drain to kick on by itself and drain naturally. Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't. It's weird. I mean, I would just literally just let it run its course, sit there. I mean, spend a little time, check the. I mean, it doesn't make any sense if you even change the hose.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, it's really not nothing to it. Really, it's not a.
No,
bunch
there
to
isn't.
it.
Yeah, dishwashers are pretty simple, especially a Whirlpool.
Right. The only thing that's
Is
making
it
sense
the,
to
is
me
it the
is
same model?
It's a similar model. Yes.
So-
it's a 526 drain pump. The last numbers.
Well, no, I mean the machines.
Yeah, they are similar. That they're the ones with that the whole sump deck. That you can just pop out. The KitchenAid version. A real common model.
Yeah. Do they have the fan in the door?
Yes, I do.
Check that fan, because I haven't seen it in a while, but I had a DC voltage problem. That fan was dropping out and everything was going haywire. But it started with the drain. It wouldn't drain at the end of the cycle.
It's good to know.
Yeah, good info.
I was tampering with the idea of maybe it's over soaping, and I was getting a lot of suds in there, and like that pump is just churning in bubbles.
That's a possibility.
You'd normally see that though when you go back.
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
No way that
Sometimes
second guy went and replaced the disposer right after you left, is there? You didn't tell him, hey, your disposer's all rusty, go ahead and go buy one?
Oh no, because I'd be jumping all over that. A disposal install. Oh, that's cake.
Okay. So you're taking Whirlpool dishwashers now, huh, Bobby?
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, I know.
Busting your balls, man. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. No, I'll take Whirlpool. I'll take Asco, Miele. I don't care. But the big thing is if I'm sitting on a deck of refrigeration, yeah, I'm not really gonna be jacking with a GE dishwasher or a Frigidaire dishwasher.
We were talking about your money in advertising earlier, and this is not me giving you grief. I'm genuinely curious. When you I'm going to say it, cherry pick. Does that cost you more money in advertisement than, do you lose more money in advertisement because you're not picking up a bunch of those leads? I'm curious if that balances itself out at all.
No, because all right, so originally, like when I was cherry picking with my terminology, the term cherry picking actually comes from the source. So I'm looking at how I'm advertising and what I'm advertising for. So I'm not
gotcha.
turning away calls. I'm just not advertising for those calls.
Okay.
So I'm trying to draw in big fish. So I'm just
Sure.
not using minnow bait.
I never understood it that way. That's good, and that's good to know.
Yeah, like for example, I can speak for Bobby on this one. For example, like we're advertising to target specifically for when people are searching for example, LG refrigerator repair. And that's one of the inherent differences between the majority of online advertising, like Google Ads, for example, as opposed to some traditional advertising. Traditional advertising, think of billboard. You know, you're putting a billboard up on a street, you got everybody going down that street. But with the online advertising, and as Bobby was saying, targeting at the source, we're cherry picking what people are searching for. So we're making it so that the ads are only showing up when people are searching for the types of jobs that he's prioritizing.
So instead of advertising for appliance repair, Broadnet, you're advertising for refrigerator repair, Sub-Zero repair.
Can be. So in this particular case, we are also advertising for appliance repair, the general appliance repair. And one of the reasons why is because it's just so high volume. Think about it. How many people out there that you know, need their refrigerator repaired or need their LG refrigerator repair are just going to search for appliance repair or search for just the general refrigerator repair. So it's a layered approach. But in these platforms, we're able to really fine tune the priorities. And for example, we can bid less on appliance repair and bid more on LG refrigerator repair, et cetera, et cetera.
So like what kind of input in return? I mean, you don't have to tell me exact numbers or anything, but I'm just kind of curious what that type of marketing is costing versus the return on the investment.
Good question.
I don't know if you have it up, Alex, but if you want to show them, go ahead.
Return on investments, whatever you make it, right? Because I mean, you might pay $80 for the lead, but you might charge $800 for the repair, right? I mean, return on investment is going to change every day.
Your ROI versus your KPI are going to be unknown because you don't know what your return is until you know the data is analyzed. But
I was asking in a more general sense, like how well is that type of advertisement working out for you versus like monetarily what going into it?
I'm booking out into next week right now.
And what are you spending a week on advertising? If you don't mind me asking.
What I think it's about about 2,000 a month.
Yeah, Bobby's advertising cap right now is set at 2,000, and we are still working on spending that entire cap.
Bobby, I'm sorry, but if you're spending 2,000 a month, like roughly how many calls are you getting?
120, 150, you know, from the advertisement, not including SEO or GMB, referral, Facebook, you know, like all the other sourcing.
Yeah, but that's just from, I mean, like just roughly from like the 2,000, you're still getting right around 120, 150?
Yeah, about that.
And it's okay.
One of the things that I really advocate for and really work to establish we'll call it like the network of information with the businesses that I work with is traditionally most businesses, they're focusing on lead volume and average cost per lead. However, as long as you're keeping your books in line enough, taking your leads and connecting them to your actual sales data and matching those is going to be able to give you a much better understanding. So what does, hey, we spent, I'm just making up numbers here. Hey, we spent $1,000 to generate you 75 leads and the average cost per lead is $20. What does that tell you as opposed to, hey, we spent $1,000, we drove 75 leads, 75 leads of those, 30 of them actually booked a repair, but those 30 repairs grossed you, $7,000, something like that, So I'm always encouraging people to really get a hold of your numbers and keep track of those, keep your bookkeeping in line, keep your profit and loss statements up to date, review those every month, because that's going to allow you to be able to make that connection between the leads that are being generated and which of those leads actually turned into a booking, and of those bookings, how much money did you deposit in your bank account? That's going to allow you to actually make a true educated decision in terms of marketing investments, how well it's returning, all that kind of stuff.
Would you go so far as to make that as in depth as like area codes or neighborhoods or things like that?
It all depends. Every business is, when you get into the details for every business, it's different and it's unique. So if a business is at a place, again, we were talking about how it's like phase one is volume. We got to be busy. And then once we get busy enough, then we want to start improving things and optimizing. So if your business is at a place where you have that volume and you have the space to try to make improvements and make optimizations, then absolutely. I have another gentleman, Nick with West Metro, where he's at a place where he wants to get an understanding of what appliance types are more profitable than others. What brands are more profitable than others. As you were saying right there, Andrew, zip codes, you can measure that also. But
I lost the tail end of that. Say it
Alex,
again.
yeah, I had to mute Bobby.
Alex, hey, Alex, so when you talk about organic, advertising, how does that measure up against anything else?
Okay, so I'm going to let me give some definitions. So typically when we're referring to advertising, we're referring to when we're paying directly to a platform in order to get something. In Google Ads, you're paying to get a click every time you get a click on your ad. In Facebook, you're paying every time somebody sees your ad. So that would be what we would call advertising. Organic or marketing would be when you're not paying the platform directly. You're either investing your own time into learning, or you're investing money into hiring an agency or a marketing professional to grow your organic marketing, your business's presence in that space. So for example, paid ads, Google ads, that's advertising. Your GMB listing and your website, that's organic marketing. So the best way to think of the pros and the cons between the two, with advertising, you can typically pay to get results right away or very shortly, within a day to a couple of days. With your organic marketing, it's a longer game. You're going to need to put in work now in order to see the results later. One of the analogies that I like to use, if we were to think about kind of like hunting, advertising is hunting. You're going in to kill. You're going in for the kill and you're going to take that home and you're going to eat tonight. While organic marketing is like farming, where you're planting a seed, you're watering it, you're tending to it. And over time, once you get to the end of that season, you're going to be able to reap the fruits of your labor. Say again?
You'll be able to reap the benefits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So do you have any input on what the validity is on using someone else to do your advertising for you? So you sign up with an insurance company, you sign up with a warranty company, you sign up with a factory authorized company, you do something that they're giving your name out because you're representing them directly. Is there any benefit, or is that long-term benefit? Where does that come into play compared to advertising and marketing?
Yeah. Great question. It comes up a lot. So I always like to, it's like different steps in terms of, on one end, you have time, on the other end, you have money. So if you, and we're talking about investment. So I guess with the warranty, you have a first stage where you don't really need to put time or money in because the warranty company is doing it and then they're sending you the jobs. So it's like a stair. It's like a staircase. You know, the first step I've found is typically like your warranty companies or your lead generation companies where your brand name is not being represented. The customer doesn't even know your brand name until you pretty much show up on that day for the repair. And then that next phase would be in when you're investing your time to build out your website, to work on your SEO, to spend hours learning about this and staying up to date with it and doing it yourself. And then the top tier is hiring a professional and paying for it. And a professional that has like the experience and the results. In the internet age, you go out and you, depending on who you ask, everybody's a pro. But if they're going to charge you $200 a month, that tells you something right there. If they're going to charge you $2,000 a month, that tells you something else. Somebody charging you $2,000 a month as a marketing professional, they better be getting results right away, and they better be able to show you that they've gotten those results from others. I don't know if that answers your question or touches on it at all, Andrew.
I
Hey,
think
so Alec,
it's something you almost have to experience rather than ask questions about it. And every business is going to have its correct path, or a path that makes more sense for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I were directly competing with Bobby's doing all COD, and then on the other side, say I went and I worked for Sub-Zero and X brand, and those are the only two things that I did because Sub-Zero sent me all my work, whereas Bobby's paying for advertising. I might make less on warranty and he might pay more in advertising, but in the end, could they both balance out to be identical? Just depending on the different path, right?
I would say that they could, but the thing that I really, it comes down to in my mind is control. The first scenario, you're depending on Sub-Zero. If something happens with Sub-Zero, or maybe for whatever reason that account manager in your region decides to start giving jobs to somebody else that's in your service area. It's like you don't have the same level of control when you're depending on those sorts of sort of like warranty or referral type relationships as you're referring to. But when you're handling everything in-house, and when I say in-house, I don't mean doing the work in-house, but if you are hiring a pro or doing it yourself, but it's all within your own sphere of control, you have so many more options. Same concept of like being an employee versus being your own business owner. Like, as an employee, if the owner of the company doesn't, let's say the company is built in a way where it's dependent on the owner to show up and work in the business at least a certain amount of time. God forbid that owner gets hit by a truck or comes down with a serious illness or something, and that whole business starts to slide down. You as the employee, you don't have control over, the aspects that you would otherwise if you built sort of a self-lubricating, self-running machine of a business yourself.
I would question on top of that, don't you actually have a little bit more padding as an employee than you do as a business owner? So a shit hit the fan scenario as a business owner, you could fry your whole life. Whereas shit hit the fan for your boss, you might have a little bit more padding to fall back on.
Yeah, and I would say that what you're touching on is risk, right?
Yeah.
Like
right.
As an employee, you're not putting in the same levels of risk as the business owner is, but at the same time, risk reward. The business owner, there's a larger amount of reward that is available to them because they're taking that risk, and control comes with that. But I guess it depends on perspective. Like, yeah, as an employee, you could argue that you have better control over your future because things go sideways with the business, then there you go. If you're good at what you do and you're an expert and a specialist, you could probably go get a job at any other company, no problem. I definitely did not intend for the conversation to get into marketing.
I got a question for you, Alex.
Yeah, go ahead.
How many, because I did what you did for many years, I don't do it anymore. And I mean, I'll vouch, I've checked you out. You obviously know what you're talking about, but I'm just curious, how many appliance companies are you currently working with?
More than one handful, less than two handfuls.
Okay.
And
and the reason,
uh-huh.
the reason why I asked that is basically for everybody else that's listening is there's a lot of clowns in this business for what you do that say they can do X, Y, and Z for X amount of money per month, and you're going to end up burning through tons of money. Whereas if you look to somebody that has expertise in your category, i.e. appliance repair, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, yes. Well, thank you. But yeah, specialization, like there, let me take that and apply it to the general or the more broader topic. Specialization is something that can be key for people. It's a much easier way to get to the top in that narrow focus. You know, it's like this concept of, do you want to go an inch wide and a mile deep, or do you want to go a mile wide and an inch deep? Not saying that you can't establish that expertise in a whole bunch of different, you know, brands, appliance types, customer types, all that kind of stuff in your appliance repair business, but it's going to take you more time. Now, let's say you want to focus on, you know, your really high first time complete brands and appliances. Well, there you go. Specialize on that. You're going to get to the top of that mountain quicker, and then you can sort of go to the next one. Or you want to focus and specialize on your sealed system work. You know, it's yeah, it's an age-old conversation, that sort of being the generalist or being the specialist, and there are pros and cons on both sides.
I don't know why you made me think of it, but that is something that I have felt over and over and over again, is that plateau. At what point do you step off of it and decide to change? I mean, I feel like I plateaued 5 years ago. I can't make that much more money. I can't learn that much more in my field. I mean, I can, I learn every day, but realistically, it's not like there's, you know, 5 new brands out there that I'm gonna go learn. And that's what I thrive on, is learning. That's why I love this job so much. But there's just not, and it's day by day.
Hey, Andrew, I can promise you, man, because I thought I hit my plateau for a while, and I went all the way up to lead tech. But as a company owner, you can very much exceed what your salary is right now. I promise you.
But you're also going to exceed it a whole lot of headaches too, brother.
I was just going to say, Andrew, it sounds like you want that next time to start your you know, time to start your business.
Break.
Yeah, let's just say if you don't got 2 commas in your annual, man, that you need to jump.
Okay, I appreciate that advice.
Unsolicited advice aside, I don't know if there's if this conversation has stimulated any particular questions that anybody had, or did we want to possibly shift over to kind of doing some tech sheet 101 stuff that Andrew had in mind?
I would like that to be a group effort, by the way. I don't necessarily want to run that portion. It's just something that I think could be beneficial to everybody.
I've got a repair related question that would be good for all these guys.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So what do you guys do when you come across an oven with a failed latch assembly in the closed position? Just generic range, not a wall oven. Like, for instance, yesterday I had a Whirlpool glass top, same thing, lock mechanism failed. And then today I had a GE, low profile GE with the lock mechanism had failed in the closed position.
I always start with the easy answer, and it's put it back in self-clean in order to then cancel self-clean and see
When
if
no,
hopefully it'll unlock.
when the mechanism itself has failed, when the little teeth on the gears have worn,
Mhm.
and it's failed in a closed position, most of those, there's not, a couple of them you can just pull the latch over if you can reach inside, but some of them it's a locking, you know, the latch arm actually locks with another arm when it's actuated.
I've had success with 2 different methods. My go-to is the coat hanger. If I do damage, I do damage. There's no way around it. The other one that I've had good luck with is using a yardstick from the side, on ranges specifically. A yardstick from the side and pop it over. I've
I
never
use a
had one
little
that I
blue-
couldn't get open.
I use a little blue angled plastic shim. You can get them at Harbor Freight, like a pack of 4. That long one works really good. You just slide it over in the corner and then bring it in, and just keep hitting on that latch, and it will give the latch movement only a half inch, you know, if not a little less. Lock into
Yeah,
into
I was just curious if anybody had any trick. I mean, I've always been able to get it after sticking with it for a while, but you know, sometimes that's 10 minutes, sometimes that's 30 or 45 minutes, depending on the situation.
Now, with the right tool, usually about 5 minutes if you got the right one.
Some of them are pretty stubborn.
Yeah, I've got those. I've got that Harbor Freight little shim set.
Mhm.
That wasn't doing it. I've actually broke a tooth off of one of them trying to force it over.
I've done that. The older ones seem to be easier to unlock. Give it that.
You've had 2 of them that have stripped gears. They literally won't move because the motor turns, but the latch won't.
Yep. And the what I was able to do finally was get a long screwdriver in there and jiggle that you know, the post that comes off the stepping motor enough while it's moving, and it pushes it over and unlocks it. But yes, so that's 2 of almost the same failure. Probably 7 years difference on the appliances on 2 different brands in
If you
2
do,
days.
if you do have one long enough and you can push back into there, you know, on the backside where that's, sometimes you can push that back spring, you know, where that arm connects over and comes back. You can get the right angle there to be able to unlock the front hook by moving the back arm.
Yeah, well, thanks for the input.
I've got one more strange one too, if you guys want to go into another one. Daycore 48-inch range. The initial issue about 18 months ago was, so the customer bought this used for $1,000, brought it to their house, and they had a cat that continuously pissed on the stove over and over and over again. Wound up actually seeping down behind the surface burners and into the housing, which is covered, into the housing for the control boards, and just fried everything. So wound up getting display, sister board, motherboard, and that fixed it all. 18 months later, she's calling me back, and it is running 50 degrees cool at 350 degrees and 400 degrees. I used the built-in calibration mode to adjust the temperature positive 35 degrees, and that did not change. The temperature was 50 degrees low at 2 different set points. My belief, I haven't pulled it yet, but my belief is that there's going to be cat piss corrosion on the sensor wires for that oven, but I just can't be sure. The sensor is talking to the user interface clock, the EOC, if I'm not mistaken, or ERC, I guess, technically. And that's what does the logic on this particular model, if I'm not mistaken. Anybody got any fun suggestions?
I mean, it sounds like you're starting in the right spot.
Yeah.
But you said you replaced all those electronics, right?
I did all the electronics 18 months ago. It was disgusting. It was one of the nastiest decors I've ever touched.
If you run a different mode, does that model have convection?
It does have convection. I only ran it on bake. I don't know that it would matter a ton, but I guess I could have checked it on convection. I didn't. I checked it at 2 different temperatures. I thought that was covering my bases.
Right.
And then I changed calibration twice as well, and calibration didn't do a thing.
I've seen some that are just really stupid where, bake doesn't want to run properly where convection will. And usually it's board related. You prove that, the temperature sensor is working properly by having another mode confirmed working properly.
So this particular model, I don't know how educated or how knowledgeable you guys are about that original 48-inch range. It had the hidden bake element. And they came out and said, no, you got to expose that bake element. This is actually the latest revision, so it has the completely exposed bake element built in by the factory. It has the updated software in the ERC, and it has the relay board's the same on all of them, but the ERC is different.
I've about had my fill of weird ERC problems on decors. I've got one right now where we put a rebuilt ERC into it because it's discontinued. And for whatever reason, it's about 20% too fast on the clock. So if you set it about an hour later, it's off by about 10 to 15 minutes. So that's particularly fun. We have a new ERC coming for that. I think you're right on the cat piece hooked into the wiring, though. That's what I'd be looking at. Something's changing the resistance and how it's reading it, would be my guess. Also, they should get rid of the cat.
Oh, no doubt, man.
That was my first plan for it. Have like a stuffed cat instead of a living cat.
Jesus. Cat pee is gross anyway, but when it's saturated into, it was like a waterfall of cat piss underneath that surface cooktop. It took me a while to figure out what the
cat pee and food stuff is unacceptable.
it didn't register to me for a long time. She had pots on all of her surface burners, and I realized that those pots were there to keep the cat from being on top of the cooktop because it kept pissing there. And now she's had a custom company make a big cover for the entire 6-burner cooktop. I can't take it. People are crazy.
She still has the cat?
She still has a cat. She tells me that the cat does not pee up there anymore. I don't buy it for a second, but what can you do?
Cats aren't like dogs. You can't, once they find, if they're mad at something, they'll keep peeing on it forever.
Okay, so I actually do have cats. Tell her to put cat food on top of the stove, like in a bowl. If you can get a cat to think of it as like a food spot, they usually won't pee there. But she could also just leave the burners on low all the time. And that might teach the cat not to.
That would be fantastic.
No, this is good.
Thank you.
I think that this is probably a good time for me to, I'm just going to wrap up the general portion of this call with the recording and everything. You guys feel free to stick around. I think that next week we will prioritize the tech sheet sort of 101 that Andrew had in mind. It'll be a group exercise. I think that people are going to find it really helpful. But yeah, so thank you guys for showing up. These calls, the value of them are defined by those who show up in your contributions. So I'll be back here same time next week. I'm going to have this recording up within the next 24 to 48 hours, posted as a comment reply on the Facebook post. And yeah, I'm out, but you guys feel free to stick around.